Hey everybody, it's Justice for Comics. I wanted to shoot another video. I saw this article on CBR. I thought it would be kind of interesting to talk about and mention most valuable comic book in the world. There was a recent sale of an Action Comics #1. It was a graded, I think it was a 9.0. Sold. It was a CGC graded 9.0 that sold for 3.25 million. I think that was just about a month ago. I think Heritage Auctions was the site that had the book for sale. Yeah, so that's the highest price paid for a comic book to date, I believe. It broke the previous high sale of an Action Comics #1 that sold back in 2014 for 3.2 million. But this article is interesting. It says that that's probably not the most valuable comic book in the world. The most valuable is just not for sale. So it kind of goes into the history. The last time there are two other books. There's a Detective 27, obviously first appearance of Batman, and there's another Action Comics #1 that's a very high grade. I believe these are ungraded books, though. To our knowledge, I don't think they've been graded. But it's called the Church Collection, which is an interesting history. There was a graphic designer that worked in the comic book industry. Let me pull it up here. Yeah, there's some images there. Yeah, Edgar Church. He was a commercial artist and a collector of pulp magazines and comic books. He lived in Colorado. He kept all of his comic books in the basement, which is probably a good thing, right? Nice, cool area that also had some humidity so the books wouldn't dry out. So his collection was purchased, I think right before he died. He sold them to Chuck Rosansky of Mile High Comics. Bought the collection back in, I think it was in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. And it became known as the Church Collection, or some of the labels, it is a pedigree. It's also been called the Mile High Collection. So some of the graded books from that collection are either considered Mile High Collection pedigree or the Church Collection. So Church had a copy of both Action Comics #1 and Detective Comics #27. Supposedly the Detective is only around an 8.5 grade. The Action, though, it hasn't been sold since 1984, so it's been over 30 years since it was last sold. It went for $25,000 back then. Can you imagine that? So they're estimating that the grade on that Action Comics is somewhere between a 9.2 or a 9.4. The Allentown Detective Comics 27, that's the other one that they say could easily be the most expensive comic book in the world, is Detective #27, 9.4. So there is supposedly a 9.4 Detective 27 out there in the world, and there is an Action Comics #1 somewhere between a 9.2 and a 9.4. So those books would sell for way more than 3.25 million. I agree with that. I think Action Comics #1 9.4. If it ended up being a 9.4 graded, that would probably bring in over $5 million easy. So yeah, you're talking stratospheric prices here. I mean, if I was a hedge fund manager and I had, an extra $1 billion here and there, yeah, I'd buy them. If I had a lot of money to just piss away on comic books, absolutely. Who wouldn't love to have the most expensive comic book in the world on their wall in their massive mansion? I mean, I would. If I was a billionaire, no doubt about it, I would have one of these books. I would try to procure them if I could. So yeah, I just want to comment on that there are two books out there haven't been for sale for over 30 years and would be worth way more than that Action 9.0 just sold for. So I find that very interesting. Who knows? There could be other books out there too. Some of the old horror books are so rare. I mean, there's some books that have never been seen before, that they theorize are still out there. So I don't know. Maybe someone would pay millions of dollars for that as well. Find it very interesting. So the other thing I wanted to mention real quick was there's a follow-up from my yesterday's video. I need to correct myself a little bit here. I kind of got into it with somebody on Facebook because they kept saying it's a 1 per store variant, and I kept saying it's a 1 in 50. Technically, it's neither. So here's the deal. It's not truly a 1 per store variant, because if you were a shop that ordered 25 copies of Joker number 2 or 30 copies, you're not going to get this secret variant, the Bane cover, the Vengeance. They're calling it the Santa Prisca cover. All right, that's technically the name for it, the Bane Santa Prisca cover. So if you ordered 25 copies if you're a shop owner and you order 25 copies, you got the Federici variant. You know, you've got the A and B cover, but you're not going to get this secret variant because you had to at least order 50 copies. Now, the reason it's not a true 1 in 50 either is because if I ordered 200 copies of Joker number 2, right? If I'm an LCS and I ordered 200 copies, well, naturally you would think, well, if it's truly a 1 in 50, I should get 4 copies of this Bane cover, right? But that's not true either. So if you happen to order 50 copies of Joker number 2, you only got 1 of these covers. Didn't matter if you ordered 200, 300, the minimum was 50. You got 1 of these Bane covers, and that's it. So it's not a true 1 for 50. And it's also not a 1 per store. So both are incorrect, technically. So I find that, I don't know, I can't think of another comic book incentive where this has happened. It's not a 1 per store, and it's not a true 1 in 50. It's a 1 in 50, 1 per store. I don't know. I think that's the way you would categorize it, right? You have to order at least 50 copies to get 1, and you're only going to get 1. Doesn't matter if you ordered 500 copies of Joker number 2, you're only getting 1 copy. So I think that this is going to make the rarity of it a little bit more interesting. How many copies of this book are out there? Well, on eBay right now, how many listings? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, one in the UK. It looks like 15 listings, which seems like a lot. I mean, Spider-Woman 9, even the week it came out, there was only like 2 or 3 listings. That one seems to be really rare. Spider-Woman number 9, the Rose Besch 1 in 25 variant. That one seems pretty rare. This is not as rare, but I don't know. There's 15 copies for sale. I bought my copy around $225. The minimum buy it now, I think the cheapest buy it now is $275 basically. So there's a couple auctions. One of them ends in 2 hours, so today at 3:30, it's already up to $256 in bids. And you got a $275, buy it now, free shipping. So right now, the low watermark on this book seems to be $275 at the moment. Well, there's one right there at basically $275, right? With shipping is $275. $275 to $300 seems to be the low end price of this book. Now, no doubt about it, this week it will show up on the Hot 10 list. I can guarantee you it will. I'm pretty sure it will. I just find it interesting, and I hope that they mention that in the Hot 10 list, that it's not really a 1 per store, and it's really not a 1 in 50. It's kind of an amalgamation of the two, right? It's a hybrid of the two. So again, I'll explain it. It's a little confusing. If you ordered 25, 30, 40 copies, 45 copies of Joker number 2, you're not getting this cover. And if you ordered 500 copies, 1,000 copies of Joker number 2, you're only getting one. So it's both, right? It's a 1 in 50 and it's a 1 per store if you qualified and ordered at least 50 copies. But you're not going to get multiple copies of this issue. So, and basically no one knew about this. Nobody did. They did not release this image of that cover until after FOC. So after FOC, there's no way to change your order. There's no way to say, oh no, I want 100 copy. There's no way to adjust your order after FOC. So what you ordered is what you're getting. So a lot of shops are obviously going to price this book pretty expensive. It comes out today. It's Wednesday. It's New Comic Book Day. A lot of shops have this book in their stores. My suggestion is, if you really want this book, try to find a shop owner that's not really on top of things real well. You know, maybe you can go in there and maybe you'll have it priced at $100. I would say if you can get this below $200, you definitely have done well. Will this book hold its value long term? That's a whole different discussion. I don't know. It just depends on this character. You know, a lot of people have said, hey, hasn't there already been a Daughter of Bane? I mean, I think there's basically the Elseworlds with the old lady Harley. I think number 3, people are mentioning that's, you know, the child of Bane has already shown up in that. I don't know. I'm not too sure about that. I also don't know if that really is considered DC continuity. Right now, this seems to be the book that people are focused on. This could be, you know, 2021's equivalent to Punchline. You know, Punchline last year was definitely the biggest character that came out last year. I know we had Robin King. We had a couple DC characters. Did we have anybody from Marvel last year? I mean, we had Something Is Killing the Children. That was a huge key book. But I would say, as far as characters in comic books, Punchline was probably your biggest character last year. So Hell Arisen number 3 was a big marquee book to have. I think this year this could be the marquee book to have. That's what I'm guessing will happen. Now, is this price justified? It seems high. I mean, I overpaid. I feel like I overpaid. No doubt about it. I definitely am suffering from a little FOMO. But what's Hell Arisen number 3 going for these days? First full appearance. Let's see. We want a first print. Buy it now. Are we going to find that? There we go. Oh, that's an auction still. $100. Let's see. That's a second print. Second print. Here's another auction. And I'm trying to find a first print. All right, there you go. So it took me a while to find it. There's your first print, Hell Arisen number 3. Year of the Villain, Hell Arisen number 3. I didn't say that right. First appearance, Punchline. Buy it now on a 9.8 graded. It's about $330 plus $15 shipping. Now here's an ungraded copy at $240. So I remember, you know, when this book was hot the first week or two, this was a $30 to $40 book. Second week, it jumped to $50 to $60. And I don't think it ever really slowed down. I mean, it just took off from there. So I remember a couple people messaging me saying, yeah, I got one for $80. Yeah, I got one under 100, just under 100. And it's just kind of been slowly going up since then. So I don't know. I think there will be a dip in this Bane book. I don't know if it's going to go below. I kind of hope it doesn't go below 200 because I paid 225 for my copy. So I'm kind of hoping it at least stays at $200. But it just depends. I mean, if all these copies at this 275 range get bought out, all these a lot of these auctions are going to end in the next several days. How many copies come up for sale after this? I could tell you if there's only going to be 4 or 5 listings after most of these auctions end, I think the new low price will be probably at least $300. The key will be a couple weeks from now, maybe 3-4 weeks from now. It's kind of out of your mind at that point. Maybe something else is taking center stage. Then you could see some price dipping. I've had some people message me saying, "Yeah, I think it will drop down to maybe 100, 150." And so there's some people waiting to try to buy it around that $100 to $150 range. There's no doubt about it. People want this book. There is a desire to buy it. I definitely have had several people. My Instagram page, when I message out something, there's quite a few followers. I'm over 1,200 followers now. So I've had a lot of people reach out to me saying, yeah, they definitely want this book. So in my opinion, this is sort of like the key book of the year so far. I don't know if it will remain that way, but yeah, Bane's Daughter. It just depends on how they write her and what kind of significance she has in the Batman universe. But I think I've been saying it. This is a pretty cool book. It shocked me and surprised me. I don't think anyone really knew this was happening. It's definitely, DC definitely threw us a left hook, and it remains to see what happens. But just thought I'd update the information on that. All right, guys, I will post a video later today on New Comic Book Day, books that are coming out next Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. I'll have another video in the afternoon. Thanks, guys.